Mega Man.
Hello and welcome to Real Person Reviews. I'm Sam and I'm a real person. Today I want to talk to you about Mega Man 2 for the Game Boy. Not to be confused with Mega Man 2 for the NES. This is not a port of that game. And it's obviously not that same game. It's basically, think of it as Mega Man 2 on NES is the number 2. And Mega Man 2 on Game Boy is Roman numeral 2. And that, I mean, it's still going to be a little confusing, but that should help you a bit. And a few things up front. On top of that, I also want you to be aware of, I'm assuming you've already either seen my review of Mega Man Dr. Wily's Revenge, also on the Game Boy, or know about that, or about Mega Man, classic Mega Man in general, before jumping into this. So, that's the thing, and I played this on the 3DS, the Virtual Console version, rather than the actual physical cartridge, so that's why this one doesn't have any, added color from Game Boy Advance stuff or whatever, because it's not being played on something like that. So I had choice of black and white or the black and green thing, and I just went with the default that it went to. So that's the thing, I guess. And I don't know if there's any inconsistencies or not between the two, but judging by how most Virtual Console titles work, should be good. And lastly, of course, there's a written review you can check out before, after, or instead of this video review, at hubworldhq.com, or just go to the link in the description. Also, it sounds like it might start raining in here, so hopefully I don't have to cut this weird, because it starts raining super loud. Sorry if that's a thing. So yes, there's a plot to Mega Man 2, but I think it's just explained in the booklet, which doesn't come with the Virtual Console version. It wouldn't come with just a loose game. A game doesn't really tell you in-game what the fuck's going on, but do you really need a whole lot of backstory for this? It's just, you gotta fight Dr. Wily, and he's sending robots after you. You beat the robot masters. You know the drill by now. You start off like in the previous one, where you can select between, in any order you can take on these 4 different robot masters. These 4 are from Mega Man 2 on NES. You go through their stages, which are themed the same way as the NES game, but they're also they're different stages entirely. They use some elements of there and some visual stuff, but they're entirely new stages, even though you'll be fighting the same bosses at the end. The bosses have been slightly altered to work on the Game Boy, so maybe some slower speeds and such for the smaller rooms, but they're basically the same stuff. You use the weaknesses to try and beat the other bosses, whatever. Once you get them all down, also you get a password after beating each one, just like along with getting the power and whatnot, like you usually do. Common stuff, it was in the previous one, you already know about all this, so I'm kind of glossing over it a bit. Some additions to this one, it controls a little more like Mega Man 2 and 3, a little more tightly like that, much closer to 3, really, because you have the slide now, so if you hold down and hit jump, you slide, which gives you a slight boost. You can get under some narrow passageways, because it makes you slide on your back, so you're shorter, so you take up less space, that kind of thing. They introduced the Rush items. There's Rush Jet, which you can jump onto Rush, and then if you don't know, Rush is this robotic dog that is your companion. He can transform into these things. So there's Rush Jet, where you can jump on him and basically just have free roam around, in the air. There's Rush Marine, which is kind of the same thing, except for going underwater. And then there's the Rush Coil, which summons Rush in front of you, and you jump on him, and he'll springboard you upward to places you couldn't reach before with your regular jump. Each of these, of course, runs on their own set of ammo, just like the special weapons. And after you beat those 4 bosses... Oh, yeah, one other thing, too. The energy tanks is new. Not new to the series, of course, but to the Game Boy ones it is. They brought those in, where basically you get the E-Tank, and then at any point you can select it in your inventory and you can fully heal yourself. But as far as I know, they are limited. I don't know that they respawn or not. I'm not sure of that. I didn't test that, but it seems like you get a limited amount to work with at any given time. And after you beat those 4 bosses, you then are taken to in this next part we have to fight 4 more bosses. These, you can also fight in any order, but you don't know what the bosses are, as they're all hidden behind these teleporters. And each one still has their own stage, and it's basically the same thing, but with, 4 bosses from Mega Man 3, the NES Mega Man 3. So, you go through, you fight them, and after beating each one of them, you can get their powers, you get a password, and, it does, each one has their own stages, same thing, same idea, where the stages where you fight these guys, they're not the same stages from the NES game. They're similar elements, but, different, totally different levels, layouts and obstacles and whatnot. And in between each one, you get their powers, you get a password. The only difference here is that you don't get a refill on all of your ammunition, because I guess it's supposed to be like a gauntlet of fighting all of them at once or whatever, so it's like, I guess, once you beat all 4 of those in whatever order you'd like, then, you're taken to a special all-new boss that you fight, and then you'll get a password for beating them, and a new weapon that's totally new to this game. After that, you basically just go through a big Dr. Wily stage, and then fight Dr. Wily, the final boss of him, which is a 3-form fight. That's pretty much the game. And it's got a lot of good stuff about it. It plays like Mega Man. It plays pretty tight. I think it's tighter than the first game. It plays more like Mega Man 2 and 3. So I guess I really liked that it felt a little better that way. Oh, I'm sorry. Ugh. And, I really liked, the slide mechanic's nice. I liked that in Mega Man 3 anyways. And I like that it gives you a little bit of a boost. Lets you go through some more dynamic level design with it, going under things with that. Also, it helps a lot for some of the boss fights where you need that slight boost or you need to get under like a lower jump or something. It just helps you maneuver, especially with the speed of the Game Boy and the size of the sprites and the screen and all that. You have less space to work with, and that helps the part of the balancing. I also think they balance the bosses pretty well, where they feel like you can actually dodge their attacks effectively in this one. Whereas I felt like it was pretty tough in Mega Man 2 to dodge them specifically on the NES. So like this was cool. I don't know, like that. Like some of the characters are a little slower, so you can feasibly dodge them and have the time to, and then they're still doable. Also, I feel like they balanced it a bit more, so it doesn't feel like you're totally destroying them with all their weaknesses, but it's still kind of easy with their weaknesses. The only difference is that your main buster also does decent damage as well. So, like, that's good, because I like to be able to actually fight them, in case I run out of ammo, I don't have to, you're not totally screwed. Hold up a sec. Had to do a quick cut there. Alright. The rain. So now in a different location. Alright. So the balance is good. It's easier to, just to fight them in general, I guess. Which I thought was actually kind of nice. It felt like I didn't have to rely so heavily on getting their weaknesses in order just to beat them. It was also kind of interesting that the music... Also, like, a quick for the balancing thing, too, is that the ending part's nice because they give you passwords after all those bosses, so you're not totally screwed. Or, like, not really screwed, but, like, it's not like the previous installment where it was like you had to go through all that in one go, and if you didn't, you had to start back before those 4 bosses. Was a little rough. It's like, you can do that. That wasn't the part that was tripping you up, but you still gotta do it. So, like, this is a good improvement on that, I think. I feel like the Dr. Wily fight is more fair in this one, more feasible. So like that's a thing as well, I suppose. The Wily fight is also a brand new boss too, which is cool. Along with that new boss that's before him, that's neat. I like that there's the whole new stages is totally awesome. I just absolutely love that because it's like more Mega Man. It's like you're not just getting a port. You're getting a mix-up between a mashup and a remix, really, with these different levels, and that's pretty interesting. I don't know. It's fun for more. If you want more Mega Man, it's more Mega Man. It's fun. E-tanks also help with the balancing, where it's like if you're having a lot of trouble in some part, you can use an E-tank if the powers aren't cutting it for you, you're not getting through there. It's a nice thing to have. Yeah, one other thing is the music. I guess would be the last part to just mention is that the music is it's not the same. It's interesting in that it's not the same music. It kind of feels like it's based on the same tunes as the NES games, but it also is different music, which is interesting. So that you're getting something a little different in how it sounds too, just to help give it more of its own identity. I guess, which is kind of nice. But that's one of my complaints is that the music, I think, and maybe it's just personal taste, but I think a lot of the music ends up sounding more like just a lot of Game Boy noise than actual music, which that's a shame, because it could have been awesome, and I just think it kind of wasn't. The sound design in general is just kind of like, like the sound effects aren't that great for some of the things, and some of the sound effects just sound a little weak. But maybe that's just me. Not a big deal. I think another thing is that would be a big deal for most people. For hardcore Mega Man fans anyways. Fans of the NES games would be that this game is kind of on the easy side. It seems to hand out extra lives a lot. It gives you those E-tanks. And you're able to slide, which is helpful. But there's not a whole lot of instant death stuff. There's not a whole lot of real difficult parts in most of the levels. Even a lot of the bosses are pretty doable. And the last boss might be a bit easy. Definitely the new boss, that's the sub boss or whatever before the final boss, is really easy. The weapon you get from them kind of isn't very great. It's effective against the final boss, I guess, but that's the only time you'd ever need it anyway, so it almost has to be, and it runs out anyway, so it's not that great, I didn't think. The last boss fight maybe could have been a bit more difficult, especially considering that you might have those E-tanks. It just seemed like it was pretty simple, and, I don't know. You have all these weapons at your disposal, and the last boss is just weak to your main weapon. That seems a little on the easy side. I still really enjoyed the game myself, but I could totally understand the more hardcore Mega Man fans thinking this is just too easy. I think that's maybe the biggest issue with it, is just that, most people might find it a little on the easy side. For Mega Man anyway, because, Dr. Wily's Revenge was still pretty tough. The NES Mega Man 2 was pretty tough, so I don't know, maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just thinking too hard about it, but it seems like that might be a complaint that comes up. I mean, there's not a whole lot else to say about Mega Man 2, Roman numeral 2 on Game Boy. It's very effective at what it does. I probably wouldn't recommend it over the first one if you haven't gotten in, if you haven't played Mega Man before. It's maybe more appealing to people who are pretty big Mega Man fans and would like to see the Game Boy ones, because it's more Mega Man. It's more like of that goodness. There's the new stages. There's the slight mashup element. There's some really good stuff in these in this game. It's something that I think would appeal to Mega Man fans, to have a nice companion piece to their collection, have more Mega Man to play, and have it be something different enough to be worth getting and playing, and not just a watered down port or anything. But if you're, all you have is the Game Boy, and you're not, you'd like to get into Mega Man, you're not really into Mega Man, you're like, maybe I'll check it out, then this is not a bad one. It's taking elements from probably the two most popular Mega Man games from the NES, and putting them into this Game Boy form. I would still recommend the first one over this, but it's not necessarily a bad thing to try this one either. If it's just the one you happen to find, and you're like, maybe I'll check it out. It's not a bad place to start. It's not like it's, necessarily you're going to find one that's like, this is terrible to start with, because, it doesn't really follow really storylines or anything, but, I think it's generally what I'm saying is it's worth getting. It's maybe not what I would recommend for getting into Mega Man, but it is definitely one I'd recommend for fans of Mega Man who passed it up, for sure. And I think it's worth $15 to $20. I don't know how much it goes for, but I think that's worth it for. You're gonna play it. You're probably gonna replay it at some point. And if you're on a Mega Man kick and you're playing all these NES Mega Man games, you're like, hey, I'm going to play the Game Boy ones again, because those were also really cool, and you play those, and it's just more of the stuff you already liked about Mega Man, just, in a different fashion, and that's, I mean, you've played Mega Man 9 and 10, right? If you have, maybe you played some Mega Man fan games. It's just more Mega Man. It's what you want, and it's something that's official. It's out there, and you maybe just missed it because you didn't know what it was. I don't know. Maybe the other three are going to be just as good. We'll see. I'm hoping. I'm hoping they're just as good. That's my piece.
Mega Man.